Caleb Walsh stared at the empty lot where his childhood home should have been standing. The maple tree that had shaded his bedroom window for 18 years was gone. The cracked concrete path that led to the porch steps had vanished. The red brick two-story house with the crooked weather vane and peeling white trim, the home where his mother had raised him and his sisters after their father left, had been reduced to nothing but freshly bulldozed dirt. "There must be some mistake," he muttered, double-checking the address on his phone. But there was no mistake. This was 247 Elmwood Drive, or what remained of it. Caleb had been away at college for just 4 months. 4 months of cramming for exams, working part-time at the campus bookstore, and ignoring his father's sporadic text messages. 4 months without visiting home because train tickets were expensive, and his relationship with his father was complicated at best. And now, coming home for Thanksgiving break, he found nothing. His phone buzzed in his pocket. It was his sister Charlotte. "Where are you?" she asked, her voice tight with something Caleb couldn't quite identify. "I thought you'd be at the apartment by now." "Apartment? What apartment?" "I'm standing where our house used to be, Char. Where is everyone? What happened?" The silence on the other end of the line lasted just a beat too long. "Dad didn't tell you," Charlotte finally said. It wasn't a question. "Tell me what?" "He sold the house about 6 weeks ago. We're in a rental apartment now on the other side of town." She rattled off an address. "I'll text it to you." Caleb's grip tightened around his phone. "He sold our house? Without telling me?" "Without telling any of us initially," Charlotte replied. "Mom left the house to all of us in her will, but Dad had power of attorney and, well, you'll see when you get here." The cab ride to the apartment complex took 20 minutes, during which Caleb's shock gradually transformed into a simmering rage. The Elmwood Drive house had been in their mother's family for generations. It was where they'd celebrated every Christmas, where they'd nursed their mother through her final illness, where they'd scattered her ashes in the garden behind the shed, because that's where her prize roses grew. How could his father just sell it without consulting anyone? The apartment building was a dreary beige structure with identical balconies and not enough parking. Apartment 3C was on the 3rd floor at the end of a narrow hallway that smelled faintly of someone else's cooking. Charlotte opened the door before Caleb could knock. "You look like hell," she said, pulling him into a hug. At 22, she was 2 years older than Caleb, working as a paralegal while taking night classes for law school. "Where is he?" Caleb asked, dropping his duffel bag on the laminate flooring that was trying and failing to look like hardwood. "At work. He'll be home around 6. Their younger sister, Zoe, emerged from one of the bedrooms, her face lighting up when she saw Caleb. At 16, she still lived at home full-time, still had to navigate their father's increasingly erratic behavior day in and day out. "Did you tell him?" she asked Charlotte. "I told him about the house," Charlotte said, an edge to her voice that suggested there was more to the story. "What else is there?" Caleb demanded. Charlotte and Zoe exchanged a look that sent a chill down Caleb's spine. "Dad's been acting different," Charlotte began carefully, "since he started dating Vanessa." "Who's Vanessa?" "His girlfriend," Zoe said, rolling her eyes. "She's like 12 years younger than him and works at his office. She's the reason he sold the house." "What do you mean she's the reason?" "He sold it to buy her things," Charlotte interrupted, her voice hard. "A car, jewelry, a trip to Bali, and something else, something he's been keeping secret. He's been taking money out of our college funds too." Caleb sank onto the nearest chair, trying to process what he was hearing. Their father had always been selfish, had always put his own needs first. It was why their mother had finally divorced him when Caleb was 10. But this, selling their childhood home out from under them, draining the accounts their mother had set up for their education, this was a new level of betrayal. But how could he do this legally? Caleb asked, the practical question cutting through his shock. Mom's will, that's what I've been trying to figure out, Charlotte said, sitting down across from him. And I think I found something that might explain everything. What did you find? Caleb asked, leaning forward. Charlotte pulled out her laptop, opening it to reveal a series of scanned documents. I've been interning at Wilson & Park for almost a year now. The attorneys there let me use their legal database after hours. I found Mom's will, the real one. The real one? What do you mean? I mean, Charlotte said, lowering her voice even though they were alone in the apartment, I think Dad forged Mom's signature on some documents after she died. The will that was executed gave him much more control than she ever intended. Zoe pulled her knees to her chest, watching her siblings with wide eyes. Is that why you've been taking pictures of Dad's papers when he's not looking? Charlotte nodded. I needed evidence. Mom's original will had specific provisions. The house was to be held in trust for all three of us, with Dad allowed to live there until Zoe turns 18. He shouldn't have been able to sell it. Caleb rubbed his temples, feeling a headache forming. So, what happened? After I started getting suspicious about the house sale, I searched Dad's desk when he was out with Vanessa. I found a document giving him power of attorney and full executor rights that Mom supposedly signed 3 days before she died. But that's impossible, Caleb said. She was in hospice care by then. She could barely hold a pen. Exactly, Charlotte responded grimly. And the signature doesn't match her earlier documents. I had one of the paralegals who specializes in document authentication take an unofficial look. She thinks it's forged. The three siblings sat in stunned silence, the implications hanging heavy in the air. Their father hadn't just sold their home. He'd potentially committed fraud to do it. How much did he get for the house? Caleb finally asked. Around $580,000, Charlotte answered. But that's not all. He used most of that money to buy a condo in Florida that's only in his name. And he's put $250,000 down on something else. I found the wire transfer record, but not what it was for. So he's planning to leave, Zoe said quietly. That's why he's been asking me if I want to spend next semester with Aunt Julia. The door lock clicked, and they all froze. Their father, Daniel Walsh, walked in, carrying takeout bags from the local Chinese restaurant. He was a tall man with graying hair at his temples and the kind of confident smile that had charmed countless colleagues, clients, and apparently much younger women. Caleb, you made it, he said, setting the food down on the counter as if nothing was wrong, as if he hadn't destroyed their family legacy. How was the trip? Caleb stood, fighting to keep his voice steady. It was fine until I showed up at an empty lot where our house used to be. Daniel's smile faltered slightly before returning. I was going to tell you about that over dinner. It all happened very quickly. A developer made an offer we couldn't refuse. We? Charlotte interjected. There was no we in this decision, Dad. You never consulted any of us. I'm still the head of this family, Daniel replied, his tone hardening. I made the right financial decision. That old house was falling apart. The foundation was cracking. The plumbing was shot. That house was Mom's family home for 3 generations, Caleb interrupted. And she left it to us, not just you. Daniel's face darkened. I had full legal authority to sell it. End of discussion. He began unpacking the food containers with deliberate movements. Now, who wants mushu pork? The change of subject was so abrupt, so dismissive, that Caleb nearly laughed in disbelief. Dad, Charlotte said carefully, we know about the document you had Mom sign right before she died, the one giving you power of attorney. Daniel's hand stilled for just a moment before he continued distributing paper plates. Your mother trusted me to make the right decisions for this family. Mom could barely speak 3 days before she died, Caleb said. How did she sign that document? A tense silence filled the apartment. Daniel slowly turned to face his children, his expression unreadable. "I did what needed to be done," he said finally. "For all of us." "For all of us?" Zoe repeated incredulously. "How is selling our home and buying property in Florida for you and your girlfriend good for all of us?" Daniel's eyes widened slightly. "You've been going through my things." He shot an accusatory glance at Charlotte. "That's completely inappropriate. Those are private matters." "Private like the college funds you've been draining?" Charlotte countered. "Those weren't yours to take either." Daniel's face flushed with anger. "I've worked my entire life to provide for this family. Every decision I've made has been for yourself," Caleb finished. "It's always been about you, Dad. Even when Mom was sick, you were barely there." "That's not fair," Daniel snapped. "I was working to pay for her treatments." "The treatments were covered by her insurance," Charlotte reminded him. "We all know you were seeing Vanessa even then." Daniel slammed his hand down on the counter, making them all jump. "Enough! I won't be interrogated by my own children. This conversation is over." But as he turned away, his phone buzzed with an incoming text. He glanced at it, and something in his expression changed, a flicker of panic that vanished almost instantly. "I have to go out," he announced abruptly. "Now?" Zoe asked. "But dinner?" "Business emergency," Daniel muttered, already grabbing his coat. "Don't wait up." The door closed behind him with a decisive click. "What was that about?" Caleb asked. Charlotte was already moving toward the counter where their father had left his briefcase. "I don't know, but I intend to find out. Help me look through his papers, quickly. He never leaves his briefcase behind." The siblings worked quickly, rifling through their father's briefcase with practiced efficiency. Charlotte checked the main compartment while Caleb examined the side pockets. Zoe kept watch by the window, nervously tracking their father's progress across the parking lot. "He's getting into his car," she reported, "but he's just sitting there, like he's waiting for something." "Look at this," Caleb said, pulling out a thick envelope from an inner pocket of the briefcase. Inside were printouts of emails between their father and someone named Maxwell Bishop at Coastal Developers LLC. Charlotte scanned the correspondence, her legal training helping her decipher the jargon. "These are negotiations for selling the land our house was on," she said, "but the price they're discussing is much higher than $580,000. She flipped to the final page. According to this, the final agreed price was $980,000, not $580,000. "Where's the other $400,000? Caleb asked. Charlotte's expression darkened. "I think I know." She pulled out her phone and showed them a series of photos she'd taken of their father's desk drawer. "Look at this bank statement. It's for an account in the Cayman Islands. An account that received a wire transfer of exactly $400,000 on the day after the house sale closed." "Tax evasion?" Caleb whispered. "And fraud," Charlotte confirmed. "He hid money from the sale, probably to keep it from being part of any potential divorce settlement with Vanessa. I found a prenuptial agreement draft in his email. They're getting married next month." "Married?" Zoe exclaimed. "He never even told us they were engaged." "He's leaving," Caleb realized. "The Florida condo, the offshore account, the secret wedding. He's planning to start over without us." "Guys," Zoe interrupted, her voice tight with alarm. "Dad's getting out of his car, and there's someone with him. I think it's Vanessa." Charlotte quickly returned the papers to the briefcase, arranging everything as they'd found it. They barely made it back to the living room before they heard voices outside the door. "Just get your things and we'll discuss it at my place," a woman's voice was saying. "There's no need for drama." The door swung open, revealing their father and a slim woman with highlighted blonde hair who couldn't be much older than Charlotte. Vanessa Harper, their father's girlfriend, apparent fiancée, and the catalyst for their family's upheaval. Daniel stopped short when he saw all three of his children sitting in the living room, Chinese food still untouched on the counter. "I thought you'd be eating," he said awkwardly. "We were waiting for you," Charlotte replied evenly. "Family dinner, remember?" Vanessa shifted uncomfortably beside him. "Daniel, I'll wait in the car." "No," he said, putting a hand on her arm. "Stay. It's time everyone met properly." He cleared his throat. "Kids, this is Vanessa. We're getting married next month." The silence that followed was deafening. Caleb watched his father's face, searching for any sign of remorse or shame. There was none. "Congratulations," Caleb finally said, his voice cold. "When were you planning to tell us? Before or after you moved to Florida?" Daniel's eyes narrowed. "You've been going through my things." "We had to," Charlotte said, standing. "You weren't giving us any answers. Did you really think we wouldn't notice that our home was gone? That our college funds were being drained? That you forged Mom's signature to steal her property?" Vanessa's head snapped toward Daniel. "Forged? What is she talking about?" For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Daniel's face. "It's not what it sounds like," he said quickly. "Charlotte's just upset about some necessary financial restructuring." "Is that what you call fraud these days?" Charlotte asked. She turned to Vanessa. "Did you know the house he sold was left to us in our mother's will? That he had no legal right to sell it without our consent? Did you know about the $400,000 he hid in a Cayman Islands account?" Vanessa's perfectly made-up face paled. "Daniel?" "They're exaggerating," Daniel said, but his voice lacked conviction. "I made some decisions to secure our future." "Our future?" Caleb interrupted. "Or yours and Vanessa's?" Daniel's composure finally cracked. "You don't understand the pressure I've been under. After your mother died, I was left to handle everything alone. The medical bills, the mortgage. Mom's medical bills were covered by insurance," Charlotte stated flatly. "And the mortgage was paid off 15 years ago. Try again." "I think I should go," Vanessa said quietly, taking a step back from Daniel. "No, wait," he pleaded, reaching for her hand. "I can explain everything." Vanessa pulled away. "I think your children deserve that explanation first." She looked at the three siblings with genuine regret in her eyes. "I didn't know about any of this, I swear." Then she was gone, the door closing softly behind her. Daniel stared after her for a long moment before turning back to his children, his shoulders sagging. He suddenly looked much older than his 52 years. "I messed up," he admitted, sinking onto the couch. "I thought I could fix everything before anyone noticed." "Fix what, Dad?" Zoe asked, her voice smaller than her siblings had heard in years. "What happened to make you do all this?" Daniel buried his face in his hands. "Gambling debts. Bad investments. I've been underwater financially for years, even before your mother got sick. I kept thinking I could win it all back, make one good trade that would set everything right." "So you stole from your own children?" Caleb asked incredulously. "I was desperate," Daniel whispered. "The people I owe money to, they're not the kind who offer payment plans. When your mother died, I saw a way out." Charlotte shook her head, disappointment written across her face. "We could have helped you if you'd just been honest with us." "How?" Daniel laughed bitterly. "What could 3 kids possibly do against the kind of people I'm dealing with?" "We could have gone to the police," Caleb suggested, "and watched me go to prison? Would that have been better?" No one had an answer for that. Charlotte was the first to break the silence. "Here's what's going to happen," she said, her voice steady and determined. "Tomorrow morning, you're going to transfer every penny from that Cayman account back to us. You're going to sign papers returning legal control of our college funds to each of us. And then you're going to tell us exactly who you owe money to and how much." "And if I refuse?" Daniel challenged, a flicker of his old defiance returning. Then I take these documents, Charlotte replied, pulling copies from her bag, straight to the district attorney's office. Fraud, forgery, tax evasion. That's enough for a significant prison sentence. Daniel stared at his oldest daughter, recognition dawning in his eyes. She had their mother's unflinching resolve, her uncompromising sense of justice. "You'd really do that?" he asked softly. "Turn in your own father?" "Mom taught us about consequences," Charlotte answered. "It's time you faced yours." Daniel looked from Charlotte to Caleb to Zoe, seeing not the children he'd raised but the adults they'd become, largely without his help. He nodded slowly. "Okay," he said. "I'll do it. All of it." 3 months later, Caleb stood on the same empty lot where their house had once stood. But this time, he wasn't alone. Charlotte and Zoe flanked him, and behind them stood a representative from the district attorney's office and their mother's former attorney. "The developer has agreed to sell the property back to you at the original purchase price," the attorney explained. Given the circumstances of the initial sale, they were eager to avoid any negative publicity. "And the foundation?" Charlotte asked. "The Mary Walsh Family Trust is established and funded. With the money recovered from your father's accounts and the settlement from his firm for enabling the fraud, you have enough to rebuild and then some." Their father was serving 18 months in a minimum security facility, having cooperated fully with authorities. His marriage plans with Vanessa had dissolved, though she had, surprisingly, been instrumental in helping them recover some of the funds he'd hidden. "What should we build?" Zoe asked, looking out over the empty space that had once been their home. Caleb smiled, remembering the crooked weather vane, the creaky third stair, the maple tree that had stood sentinel outside their mother's bedroom window. "Something new," he said, "but with pieces of what was here before. Mom would want us to look forward, not back." Charlotte nodded, slipping her arms through her siblings. "The house disappeared," she said softly, "but we're still here. We're still a family." As they stood together on the bare earth that held so many of their memories, Caleb felt something shift within him, a letting go of anger, a cautious embrace of possibility. Their father had sold their family home without telling anyone, had betrayed their trust in the most fundamental way. But in doing so, he'd inadvertently given them something else, the chance to build something new, together, on their own terms. And that, Caleb realized, was a foundation that could never be sold out from under them.
Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. There's a lot more interesting content coming soon.